Chapter 11. The Return Home. That night the boys slept in the pirates' bunks, and next morning they set off for home, with Peter as captain. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Darling were still grieving over their lost children. Mr. Darling was sure it was all his fault for chaining up Nana, and to punish himself, he slept in her kennel. One night he was feeling especially miserable, so he asked Mrs. Darling to play the piano in the room next door to cheer him up. "And please shut the window," he said. "It's draughty in the kennel." "You know I can't do that, dear," said Mrs. Darling. "The children might come home." But the children were already on their way. They had crossed the sea now and were flying the last bits of the way. Peter and Tinker Bell were ahead of the others, as Peter had a plan. When they found the open window and flew in, Peter was going to shut the window so that Wendy would think her mother had forgotten her and go back with him to Neverland. But Mrs. Darling was sitting sadly at the piano with tears trickling down her face. "She's fond of Wendy too," thought Peter miserably. "We can't both have her. What had I better do?" Then he gave in and said, "Oh, come on, Tink. We'll let them in." So Wendy and Michael and John slipped into the nursery. They decided to get into the bed and pretend they had never been away. When Mrs. Darling came in and saw that the beds were full, she thought it was a dream. Then the children spoke to her. She put her arms around them and woke her husband and called Nana. Peter Pan had had many strange experiences that other children could never know, but now he was looking through the window at one joy he thought he could never share. The Darlings adopted the lost boys, and Mrs. Darling let Wendy go back to the Neverland once a year to help Peter with the spring cleaning. Peter came back to visit Wendy too. He had not much an idea of the time, so he did not come every year. Once he left it so long that when he next came, Wendy had grown up and had a little girl of her own called Jane. You can guess what happened. Jane wanted to go back with him, and Wendy let her. As Peter never grew up, one year Jane's daughter was the one who went, and so it will go on, as long as they are children, and the Neverland and Peter Pan. The end.